"Shut your mouth! Who do you think you are to talk to my mother like that?" my husband roared, hitting me across the face with all his might. His mother smirked with satisfaction. But what happened 15 minutes later completely blindsided him. Before we continue, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and let me know in the comments what you think about situations like this. Thank you. And now, please enjoy the story. The silence in our small two-bedroom apartment in the Chicago suburb of Willow Creek was special, fragile, like thin ice on a puddle in early spring. It was composed of the soft, measured breathing of a tiny nose in the crib, the quiet ticking of the wall clock, and the almost imperceptible hum of the refrigerator. Kira Hayes, a young black woman of 28, sat on the edge of the sofa, afraid to move and break the precious harmony. Her son, Micah, was exactly 6 months old. For the past half-year, her life had been a series of sleepless nights, endless feedings, and one overwhelming feeling of tenderness, so sharp it sometimes made her want to cry. She looked down at her hands. Instead of the perfect manicure she once took pride in, there were short, trimmed nails and dry skin. Her career as a graphic designer felt like a past life, before maternity leave, before Micah. Now, her main project was this small, squishy bundle, smelling of milk and serenity. The bedroom door creaked open quietly. Her husband, Donovan, stood in the doorway. Tall, fit, and in a perfectly pressed shirt, he looked like a visitor from that other world, the world of offices, meetings, and deadlines. "Is he asleep?" he whispered, tiptoeing toward the crib. "Uh-huh," Kira nodded, rising to meet him. "Just rocked him to sleep. He was fussy for a whole hour." Donovan gently kissed his wife's head. He smelled of expensive cologne and coffee. That scent always associated in Kira's mind with reliability, success, and the Donovan she fell in love with 2 years ago at a corporate party. He was a promising department head at a large tech company. She, a humble designer. Their romance had been fast and beautiful. "You look exhausted," he said, looking closely at her face. "Maybe you should go visit your folks this weekend, rest and catch up on sleep. I can handle Micah myself." "Thank you, but not right now," Kira smiled gratefully. "My mother-in-law just arrived to help out." At the mention of his mother, a shadow of relief flickered across Donovan's face. Veronica, his mother, had arrived a week ago from a neighboring state with the firm intention of whipping the young family into shape. She was an energetic, bossy woman, one of those who always knew best. Her help mostly consisted of criticism and uninvited advice. Kira was either burping the baby wrong, or her stew wasn't rich enough, or she wasn't dusting the corners with enough diligence. "Speaking of Mom," Donovan lowered his voice, "she asked me to tell you she's running low on her favorite instant coffee, the kind in the glass jar. Can you pick some up when you go out with the stroller, please?" Kira nodded. Over the past week, she had learned all of her mother-in-law's culinary preferences. A specific brand of tea, only that one yogurt dessert, bread from a particular bakery. Veronica tolerated no compromises. She had entered their lives like the lady of the house, and Kira, worn out by sleepless nights, couldn't find the strength to argue. She just wanted peace and quiet. That evening, as the three of them sat in the kitchen, her mother-in-law put on her favorite record yet again. "I look at you young people, and I'm just baffled," she began, stirring sugar into her cup. "Nothing you do is right. A house with a mortgage, the wife isn't working because of maternity leave, and the baby cries all the time. I raised my Donnie alone. His father left us early, and I worked 2 jobs, and yet the house was always clean, and my son was fed and cared for." Kira silently poked at her cold side dish with a fork. She had heard this story for the 5th time. Donovan sat glued to his phone, pretending not to hear. He always did that when his mother started her monologues. "Don't pay attention to her," he would say later. "She's just worried about us." "And you, sweetie, you've really let yourself go," Veronica continued, scrutinizing her daughter-in-law from head to toe. "Thin, pale, bags under your eyes. Is that the kind of wife men like? A man needs a muse, a beauty, not an exhausted homemaker. Kira's stomach clenched with hurt. She was sleeping only 4 hours a night. All her time and energy went to Micah. She wanted to scream that she didn't have a minute for herself, that she dreamed of going to a salon or just lying in the bathtub for more than 10 minutes. But she stayed silent. Any word she spoke would be seen as talking back, as disrespecting her elders. "Mom, come on, why are you starting?" Donovan drawled lazily, without looking up from the screen. "Kira is a new mom. It's normal for her to be tired." "Normal?" Veronica exploded. "When I had you, I was back at work within a week. And she's been home for 6 months and complains about being tired." She stood up from the table, signaling the end of the conversation. Walking past Kira, she paused and patronizingly patted her on the shoulder. "It's all right, girl. I'll teach you how to be a good wife and mother. The main thing is to listen to your elders." Veronica headed toward the patio door. A second later, the sharp stench of tobacco smoke wafted through the partially open kitchen door. Her mother-in-law smoked like a chimney, a pack a day. Kira had always known this, but it hadn't mattered before. Now, with her tiny son sleeping in the next room, the smell seemed poisonous. She looked at Donovan. He continued to scroll through his news feed, completely oblivious to the smoke slowly filling the kitchen. Kira stood up and firmly closed the patio door. A dull, inexplicable anxiety was rising inside her. She felt that with her mother-in-law's arrival, her small, cozy world had begun to crack, and the smell of tobacco was only the first, faint sign of the approaching storm. Late that evening, when her mother-in-law had gone to sleep in the guest room and Donovan was showering, Kira sat by Micah's crib, gazing at his serene face. He softly made a sucking sound, scrunching up his nose in a funny way. She ran her finger over his silky cheek. This little person was her entire universe, her purpose, and for him, she was ready for anything, even enduring a bossy mother-in-law. But where was the line where patience turned into betrayal of her own child? She recalled Donovan's words when he proposed, "We'll be a team, Kira, always together." Where was that team now? Why couldn't he see how his mother was slowly but surely tearing their family apart? The sound of water running came from the bathroom. Kira got up and walked to the window. The city night glowed with millions of lights. Somewhere out there, life was bustling, full of events, meetings, and joy. But her life had narrowed to the dimensions of this apartment, to the perimeter of the baby's crib. And in this small world, an enemy had appeared, poisoning the air, both literally and figuratively. She opened her mother-in-law's suitcase, which was sitting in the hallway, just to check. At the very bottom, beneath a wallet and a keyring, lay a pack of thin cigarettes and a lighter. Kira sighed. This was going to be difficult, very difficult. The next morning began with the usual routine. Up at 6 a.m., feeding Micah, a quick cup of coffee while the baby cooed in his bouncer. Donovan had left for work early, without even having breakfast. Veronica emerged from her room closer to 10, wearing a silk robe with perfect hair, as if she had slept in a 5-star hotel, not a guest room. "Good morning, sweetie," she chirped, heading toward the coffee maker. "Where is my coffee? The one Donovan asked you to buy." "Good morning," Kira nodded, changing Micah's diaper on the changing table. "I haven't been to the store yet. I haven't had a chance with Micah." Her mother-in-law pursed her lips in displeasure. Her face instantly adopted an expression of offended virtue. "Strange. I thought a husband's request was law to a wife. Oh well, I'll make do with tea today." She poured herself hot water and sat at the table, pointedly ignoring her daughter-in-law. Kira pretended not to notice the subtle jab. She was already used to the fact that her every action or inaction was subject to immediate judgment. Finishing with Micah, she dressed him in a warm jumpsuit and prepared for a walk. "Where are you going?" Veronica called out. "To the park with Micah. I'll stop by for your coffee, too." "Hold on." The mother-in-law rose. "Let me dress him. That cap you put on him is too thin. It's windy out. You'll make the baby sick." "It's fine. A little fresh air never hurt anyone," the mother-in-law snapped. "I know better. I raised 2 children." Kira stayed silent. Arguing was pointless. Outside, of course, she changed her son's cap, burying the mother-in-law's prickly creation at the bottom of the stroller. Strolling through the park, she thought about how subtly Veronica was taking over more and more space in their lives. She was already deciding what they would eat for dinner, what time the baby would be bathed, and even what clothes he should wear. And Donovan just waved it off. "Mom means well. Don't argue with her. It's not worth the trouble." After the walk, Kira put Micah to sleep in his crib and decided to air out the nursery. She cracked open the window, which faced the patio. The weather was wonderful, smelling of spring and fresh leaves. A few minutes later, she returned to the room to check on her son and froze in the doorway. The air distinctly smelled of tobacco. The scent was coming from the patio. Kira peeked out. Veronica was standing with her back to her, happily taking a drag from a thin cigarette and blowing the smoke toward the open nursery window. "Veronica!" Kira exclaimed, unable to stop herself. Her mother-in-law jumped and turned around. There wasn't a shadow of embarrassment on her face. "What is it? Why are you shouting? You'll wake the baby." "You are smoking right by the nursery window." Kira tried to speak calmly, but her voice trembled. "All the smoke is coming into the room." "Oh, come on," the mother-in-law dismissed her. "The patio is big. It'll air out. Honestly, you're such a delicate flower. Back in my day, we lived in crowded starter homes. You could hang a hat on the smoke in the hallway, and no one got sick. We all grew up healthy." She demonstrably took another deep drag and flicked the butt down, right onto the flower bed beneath the window. "Please, don't do that again," Kira pleaded, feeling the anger boil inside her. "Micah is still tiny. Smoke is bad for him." "What's one little cigarette going to do to him?" Veronica scoffed. "You exaggerate. You mothers always treat your children like delicate treasures." She walked past Kira into the kitchen, leaving a trail of acrid smoke behind her. Kira rushed into the nursery and flung the window wide open. The room needed to be aired out immediately. She looked at the sleeping Micah. He was slightly frowning in his sleep and snuffling anxiously. Her heart squeezed with fear and helplessness. That evening, when Donovan returned from work, Kira decided to talk to him. She waited until her mother-in-law went to watch her favorite show and approached her husband, who, as usual, was sitting on the sofa with his laptop. "Donovan, we need to talk about your mom." "Again?" he sighed, leaning back wearily. "Kira, I worked all day. I'm tired. Can we not do this now?" "No, now," she insisted. "She was smoking on the patio today, and all the smoke went into Micah's room." "So what?" Donovan shrugged. "She wasn't smoking in the room itself." "Donovan, you don't get it." Kira felt tears welling up. "It's dangerous for his health. He's so tiny. He could get lung problems, allergies." "Stop being so dramatic," he interrupted. "Nothing serious is going to happen from one time. Mom is an adult. She can't just quit a 30-year habit at the snap of a finger. You need to be more understanding." He spoke so calmly, so casually, as if the issue were merely his mother forgetting to turn off the bathroom light. "But he's our son!" Her voice broke into a shout. "Don't you care?" "Of course I care." He raised his voice too. "But my mother is family too. She came here to help us, and instead of gratitude, you grill her and lecture her. She already complained to me that you're picking on her." "I'm picking on her?" Kira couldn't believe her ears. "I'm just asking her not to poison our child." "You know what?" Donovan slammed his laptop shut. "You two figure it out. I don't want to be caught between the two of you. You're both important to me. Just find a way to get along." With those words, he got up and left for the kitchen. Kira was left alone in the middle of the living room. Tears streamed down her cheeks. She felt betrayed. The man who promised to be her rock simply washed his hands of the problem, leaving her alone to deal with his mother. That evening, Kira considered for the first time that Donovan loved his mother more than her, more than their son. The thought was terrifying, and she tried to push it away, blaming it on postpartum exhaustion and hormones. But a cold seed of doubt had already been planted deep in her soul. Late that night, when everyone was asleep, Kira went into the kitchen for a glass of water. The faint smell of tobacco smoke lingered in the air again. She walked to the window. An ashtray, an ordinary coffee mug with a couple of cigarette butts in it, sat on the windowsill, hidden behind the curtains. So, Veronica had been smoking right here in the kitchen, with the window cracked open, while they slept. Kira silently emptied the butts into the trash, washed the mug, and put it back. She wouldn't say anything to either of them, but from that moment on, she would be on guard. A war had been declared, albeit a silent one, and in this war, she would fight for her son alone. A week passed, filled with quiet, draining resistance. Veronica continued to smoke in secret, and Kira kept finding traces of her transgressions: cigarette butts under a layer of vegetable peels in the trash, a faint smell of smoke in the bathroom. She stopped making comments, simply airing out the apartment and trying to keep Micah away from her mother-in-law. Donovan, seeing no open conflict, was in a complacent mood. "See?" he'd say. "I told you two would get along. It just took time." Kira offered a strained smile in response. She knew this wasn't peace, but the calm before the storm. Then, the thing she feared most happened. One morning, Micah woke up with a raspy, barking cough. He was struggling to breathe, his little chest heaving with effort. Panic gripped Kira. She immediately called a pediatrician from a private clinic, distrusting the general practitioner who dismissed everything with, "It's nothing serious, it will pass." The pediatrician, a kind older woman named Dr. Olivia Reed, arrived within an hour. She listened to Micah's lungs, examined his throat, and asked Kira questions. "Does anyone in the house smoke?" she asked, her gaze turning stern. "Yes," Kira answered honestly. "My mother-in-law." "Where does she smoke?" "On the patio in the kitchen. I ask her not to, but—" Dr. Reed sighed heavily. "The boy is developing obstructive bronchitis. For a 6-month-old, that's very serious. His airways are still very narrow, and any irritant, especially tobacco smoke, can cause swelling and spasms." "What should I do?" Kira whispered, her hands turning cold. "First, you must immediately and completely eliminate all contact with smoke. None on the patio or out the window. The smoker must go outside, and after returning, wash their hands and change their clothes before approaching the child. Second, here's a prescription. We will start nebulizer treatments. If there is no improvement within 2 days, or if it gets worse, call an ambulance immediately. He will need to go to the hospital." The words hospital and ambulance sounded like a death sentence. When the doctor left, Kira sat over her crying son's crib, feeling a mix of fear, anger, and despair. Her small, defenseless boy was suffering because of an adult woman's selfishness and stubbornness. That evening, a serious confrontation took place. Kira gathered both Donovan and Veronica in the living room. Without emotion, trying to speak as calmly as possible, she repeated the doctor's words. "Therefore, as of today, smoking is completely banned in our apartment. If you need to smoke, Veronica, please go outside." Her mother-in-law listened with a stony face. When Kira finished, she theatrically clutched her hand to her heart. "So you're saying I'm to blame for the baby's illness?" Her voice trembled with offense. "I am only relaying the doctor's words," Kira answered firmly. "Tobacco smoke is a powerful allergen and irritant for an infant." "What nonsense!" Veronica scoffed. "People have smoked all their lives and children grew up healthy. This is all made up by your newfangled doctors just to squeeze more money out of you. Donnie, you remember Uncle Cole, our neighbor? He smoked like a train, and his daughter was the picture of health." Donovan, who had been silent until then, looked over at Kira. "Kira, maybe you shouldn't be so absolute. It's hard for Mom to run outside every time, especially in the evening. Her legs hurt." "Donovan, we're talking about our son's health." Kira felt herself losing control. "Did you hear what the doctor said? Bronchitis, the hospital? No, this stops now. I forbid smoking in this house. I am his mother, and I am responsible for my child." She looked directly into her mother-in-law's eyes. Veronica's gaze was cold and angry. Unconcealed triumph flickered in it. She had gotten what she wanted. She had provoked an open conflict in which Donovan was once again taking her side. "Fine," the mother-in-law said, surprisingly calm as she stood up. "Have it your way, daughter-in-law. Since you're the boss around here, I won't interfere with your healing process." She left for her room, slamming the door loudly. "Well, there you go. Look what you've done," Donovan said with reproach. "You hurt Mom's feelings. Now she'll be upset all night. And I'll be sitting by our son's crib all night listening to him choke on his cough." Kira cut back, and she went into the nursery. The night was a nightmare. Micah barely slept. The cough racked his little chest. Every 2 hours, Kira gave him nebulizer treatments, holding him in her arms, trying to comfort him. Donovan slept on the living room sofa to rest before work. A couple of times he peered into the nursery sleepily and asked, "How are you two doing?" Kira had a terrible dream. She was in a dark, smoke-filled maze and couldn't find the way out. And somewhere far away, her son was crying. She woke up to that crying. Micah was coughing again. Kira picked him up. He was burning up. The thermometer read 101.3 degrees Fahrenheit. She rushed into the living room. "Donovan, wake up! Micah has a fever. He's worse." "Call an ambulance," he mumbled, without opening his eyes. "I'm scared," Kira whispered. "Don't be. I'm with you." He rolled over onto his other side and started snoring again. Kira stood in the middle of the room, looking at her sleeping husband, the man who had promised to be there in sickness and in health. At that moment, she felt a chilling loneliness. She was alone in this fight, absolutely alone. With trembling hands, she dialed 911. 15 minutes later, she and Micah were on their way to the hospital. Donovan never woke up, and Veronica didn't even leave her room. The hospital corridors smelled of antiseptic and anxiety. Kira and Micah were admitted to an isolation room in the pediatric unit. The diagnosis was confirmed: acute obstructive bronchitis. The next few days turned into an endless cycle of procedures: shots, IVs, nebulizer treatments. Micah cried from pain and fear, and Kira cried with him, feeling guilty that she hadn't been able to protect him. Donovan visited the next day, looking sheepish. "What did the doctor say?" he asked. "She said that a couple more days of secondhand smoke exposure, and he could have had pneumonia," Kira replied flatly. Donovan paled. "I'm sorry," he said quietly. "I didn't think it was that serious. I talked to Mom. She's really upset. She's crying. She promised she won't smoke in the apartment anymore." "I don't believe her," Kira cut back. "Kira, please, don't be like this. She really regrets it." He tried to hug her, but she pushed him away. "I don't have time for this right now. I need to be with my son." Donovan stood there indecisively for a moment longer, and then left, leaving behind a bitter feeling of disappointment. His apology felt rehearsed, and his concern for his mother seemed far more genuine than his concern for his son. 5 days later, they were discharged. Micah looked better. The cough was almost gone, but he was weak and cranky. Returning home filled Kira with anxiety. She didn't know what to expect. Veronica met them with feigned warmth. She had cooked dinner, fussed over Micah, and gasped and sighed. "Oh, my poor little daughter-in-law, you look so thin." "Kira, forgive me, an old fool," she said that evening when they were alone in the kitchen. "I truly didn't mean to hurt my grandson. Not another cigarette in the house, I swear." Her eyes were full of tears, and Kira almost believed her. Perhaps her grandson's illness really had affected her. Perhaps she had realized her guilt. The next few days, peace reigned in the house. The mother-in-law genuinely didn't smoke in the apartment. She went outside, just as Kira had asked. Donovan became more attentive, helping with Micah. In the evenings, they even watched movies together, like they used to. Kira began to hope that the crisis was over, that they could fix everything. But one day, while unpacking groceries, she dropped an orange, and it rolled under the kitchen cabinet. Reaching for it, Kira felt something hard with her hand. It was a flat metal box. She struggled to pull it out. It was a cigarette case, antique, silver, with a monogram. Kira opened it. Inside lay 3 thin cigarettes, her mother-in-law's favorite brand. Her heart dropped. She hasn't quit. She just got sneakier. She was hiding cigarettes, smoking somewhere in secret. But where? There was no smell in the bathroom, none on the patio either. Kira began her small investigation. She started listening for sounds, sniffing for smells, and one night, waking up to Micah's cry, she went to the kitchen for a bottle and heard a quiet rustling sound from her mother-in-law's room. The door was slightly ajar. Kira peeked through the gap. Veronica was sitting on the bed with her back to the door. In her hand, she held what looked like a vape pen, blowing clouds of vapor out the open window. A chill ran through Kira. Vapes. They barely smell, but the vapor is no less harmful to the lungs than regular smoke. That's why I couldn't smell it. Her mother-in-law had simply changed tactics. The next day, Kira decided to confirm her suspicions. When Veronica went to the store, Kira slipped into her room. She felt awful, rooting through someone else's things, but maternal instinct was stronger. In a dresser drawer, under a stack of linen, she found what she was looking for: a charger and several bottles of e-liquid. The flavors were fruity, cherry, apple. They could easily mask any characteristic tobacco smell. That evening, she tried to talk to Donovan again. "I found a vape pen in your mom's room. She's smoking it in her room at night." "So what?" Donovan didn't even look away from his computer. "Those aren't regular cigarettes. They're harmless." "Who told you that?" Kira was stunned by his naivete. "They have nicotine, propylene glycol, and flavorings. That vapor is just as dangerous for Micah as smoke is." "Oh, Kira, don't start." He waved his hand in irritation. "You're looking for another reason to pick on Mom. She's already walking on eggshells, afraid to say the wrong thing. She promised not to smoke, and she's not smoking regular cigarettes. What more do you want?" "I want no smoking in this house, period," Kira almost screamed. "None. Can you get that through to your mother?" "And can you stop being such a witch?" he snapped back. "I'm tired of your constant complaints." The conversation had reached another dead end. Kira realized that Donovan wasn't just unwilling to help her. He was consciously choosing his mother's side, ignoring the danger to his own son. Her trust in her husband, already undermined by his infidelity, was now dissolving with every passing day. She decided to take a different approach. Since words didn't work, she needed undeniable proof. The next day, she went to an electronics store and bought the smallest covert camera she could find. That evening, while her mother-in-law was taking a bath, Kira quietly set it up in her room, camouflaged within a stack of books on a shelf. Her hands trembled, and her heart pounded with the realization of what she was doing. She was spying on her husband's mother in her own home, but what choice did she have? How else could she prove she was right? How else could she make them understand that she wasn't hysterical, but a mother fighting for her child's health? She felt she was crossing a line, after which there would be no returning to her former life. But her former life was already gone. There was only this quiet, cold war, where all means were justified. The camera footage was a genuine shock to Kira. She expected to see her mother-in-law secretly vaping, but what she saw exceeded her worst fears. Veronica wasn't just smoking. She was living a double life, full of lies and contempt for them. The very first night recording showed the mother-in-law, after waiting for everyone to fall asleep, pulling out of her secret spot not only the vape, but also regular cigarettes. She sat by the open window and chain-smoked, flicking the ashes into the same coffee mug Kira had found earlier. But that was just the beginning. The camera captured her phone conversations with a friend, a certain Zenaida. "Can you believe it, Zena? That hysterical woman has turned this place into a concentration camp?" Veronica complained, taking a drag. "Smoking bothers her, you see. Her baby is so delicate, but the fact that I'm a wreck because of her and my heart is giving out, that's nothing. My Donnie is such a lamb. Whatever that mouse tells him, he does. She's got the boy wrapped around her finger. But don't worry, I'll give her a run for her money. She'll dance to my tune yet." Kira listened to the recording with a sinking heart. A mouse, hysterical. So that's what her mother-in-law really thought of her, and her complaints about her heart were just an act for her son. But the most damning clip was recorded the next day. Veronica was talking on the phone with Donovan. Kira recognized her husband's voice, even though it sounded muffled. "Son, I can't take this anymore," the mother-in-law said in a tearful voice. "Kira is absolutely tormenting me. Today she claimed that my perfume gives Micah an allergy and demanded that I stop wearing it. Can you believe it? I told her they were expensive French perfumes, and she said, 'You smell like an old chest of drawers.'" Kira went cold. She had said nothing of the sort. She hadn't even mentioned the perfume. It was a brazen, monstrous lie. "Mom, don't worry about it," Donovan's voice came from the speaker. "You know she has postpartum depression. That's why she's nitpicking everything." "Postpartum depression?" Veronica sobbed. "It's not depression. It's a mean streak. She simply hates me and is turning you against me. I feel like I'm losing you, son." "Mom, don't cry." Donovan's voice became soft and comforting. "You will never lose me. I'll talk to her tonight. I'll put her in her place." Kira turned off the recording. She was shaking. So this was how it worked. Her mother-in-law was methodically and coldly destroying her reputation in her husband's eyes, inventing non-existent slights, playing the victim, and acting out dramas. And Donovan, her husband, her team, believed her every word. He didn't just believe her, he was ready to put his own wife in her place to appease his mother. The scale of the betrayal was much deeper than she could have imagined. It wasn't just about the cigarettes. It was about total disrespect, the insidious game her mother-in-law was playing behind her back, and Donovan's blind, infantile devotion to his mother. She played the recording further and saw what finally killed all hope in her. During the day, while Kira and Micah were out for a walk, Veronica went into their bedroom. The camera in her room partially captured the hallway. The mother-in-law opened Kira's closet and started sifting through her things, wrinkling her nose in disgust. She pulled out a new silk dress that Kira had bought before pregnancy and never worn. She held it up to herself, twirled in front of the mirror, and then threw it on the floor and stepped on it with her heel. Then she took a bottle of Kira's favorite perfume from the vanity, the same one Donovan had given her for their wedding anniversary, and poured half of it down the bathroom sink. Kira watched the screen, unable to breathe. This was not just a petty, spiteful act. It was an act of pure, unadulterated hatred. Why? What did I ever do to her? Why did I deserve this treatment? The answer was simple and awful, simply for existing, for taking her son away, for becoming the lady of the house. Kira saved all the video files onto a flash drive and hid it. Now she had proof. But what should she do with it? Show Donovan? Start a huge fight? She imagined the scene. She shows him the video of his mother pouring out her perfume. And what would he say? Mom got carried away. She's stressed. Or worse yet, he would accuse Kira of staging it all herself to defame his saintly mother. No, she needed to act differently, more subtly, more strategically. Her enemy was cunning and manipulative, which meant Kira had to become the same. That evening when Donovan returned from work, he was moody and dark. He silently went to the kitchen, poured a glass of water, and said, without looking at Kira, "Mom said you forbade her from using her perfume." Kira calmly washed the dishes. She was prepared for this conversation. "I didn't say that," she answered in a steady voice. "Don't lie." He slammed the glass on the counter. "Mom never lies. She said you called her an old chest of drawers." "And you don't entertain the thought that your mother might be lying?" Kira turned to him. "My mother?" He laughed a bitter, angry laugh. "She dedicated her whole life to me. And who are you? You came into our family a year ago and are already trying to establish your own rules and turn me against the person closest to me." His face was contorted with anger. Kira saw before her not her loving husband, but a stranger, a furious man ready to defend his mother from the whole world, even from common sense. "I'm not trying to do anything," she said quietly. "I just want to live peacefully and raise a healthy child." "If you want to live peacefully, learn to respect my mother," he snapped. "And if I hear one more complaint from her about you, you'll regret it." He turned and walked into the living room, slamming the door. Kira was left alone in the kitchen. Cold fury gave way to icy calm. She realized she no longer loved this man. The next day she called her father, Marcus Hayes. She didn't go into detail over the phone, but she knew that her father was the only person who could help her now. Not just comfort her, but help her devise a plan to save herself and her son from this viper's nest. Marcus arrived the next day while Donovan was at work. Kira met him at the door, and he understood everything instantly from her drawn face and dull eyes. "Start talking," he said, walking into the kitchen and sitting at the table. Kira silently put her laptop down in front of him and inserted the flash drive. "Just watch, Dad." They watched all the recordings together. Marcus watched in silence, only the muscles in his jaw twitching. He had seen a lot during his years working for the police department, but the malice captured in these clips shocked even him, especially the scene with the dress and the perfume. When the last recording ended, he remained silent for a long time, staring at the dark screen. "Yeah," he finally said. "An actress from a roadside theater, and her son is just like her." "What should I do, Dad?" Kira asked quietly. "Leave him?" "Without hesitation," he replied. "Pack your things and leave. You need to run from people like that without looking back." "But where will I go? The apartment has a mortgage. Donovan is the owner. I'm on maternity leave without a job." "You'll come to me," her father said firmly. "My apartment is your home. We'll deal with the assets later. The most important thing now is to get you and Micah out of this snake pit." The plan they devised was simple and effective. There was no need to cause a scene or confront them. They needed to act quietly and quickly. That same evening, Kira, after waiting for her mother-in-law to go to her room, approached Donovan. She decided to make one last attempt, to give him one last chance. "Donovan, I want your mother to move out," she said as calmly as she could. "What?" He looked up from his phone. "Are you out of your mind? Where will she go?" "Back to where she came from. She's been our guest for almost a month, and we no longer need her help. On the contrary, she's causing problems." "You are causing problems," he flared up. "Mom came here for us, for her grandson, and you're kicking her out. She's poisoning our son with cigarette smoke and turning you against me." Kira decided to go all in. "That's not true," he shouted. "You're making it all up. Mom is a saintly woman." Kira silently pulled out her phone and played the video fragment where Veronica was complaining to her friend about her mouse daughter-in-law. Donovan stared at the screen, his face changing. He clearly hadn't expected this. That's just women talking," he stammered, though less confidently now. "She didn't mean any harm." "And this didn't mean any harm either?" Kira played the recording of the mother-in-law stomping on her dress. Donovan watched, mouth agape. He was in shock. I don't know what to say," he choked out. "Maybe it's edited?" "Edited?" Kira gave a bitter laugh. "Are you serious? You're ready to believe in a conspiracy theory just so you don't have to admit that your mother is a nasty, malicious person?" He was silent. Kira saw the struggle going on in his head, but to her horror, he made his choice. "Even if it's true," he said, avoiding her gaze, "she's my mother. I can't kick her out. She's an elderly, sick woman." "She's not sick, Donovan. She's a manipulator. And you are her puppet." "Shut up!" He jumped up. "Don't you dare talk about my mother like that." Kira knew this was the end. The last chance was gone. "Fine," she nodded. "If she's not leaving, I'm leaving, and I'm taking Micah with me." "What?" He glared at her. "You can't take my son away from me." "Oh, yes, I can. He'll live with me, and you can stay with your mother." The next day, while Donovan was at work and Veronica was out shopping, Kira started packing. Her father arrived with a large suitcase and boxes. They worked quickly and efficiently. First, everything necessary for Micah: clothes, toys, the crib, the stroller. Then, her personal belongings. Kira looked at the apartment she had once lovingly decorated and felt nothing but disgust. Every object reminded her of lies and betrayal. She left the keys and a short note on the kitchen table. "I'm leaving. I'm filing for divorce." As she, her father, and Micah, sleeping in his car seat, were leaving the building, they ran into Veronica. She was returning with groceries, looking pleased and cheerful. Seeing Kira with her bags, she froze. "Where are you off to in such a hurry?" she asked spitefully. "Home," Kira replied. "And this isn't your home?" the mother-in-law sneered. "The apartment is in Donnie's name, so good riddance, it's about time." Marcus stepped forward. "As for you, Ms. Veronica, we'll be having a separate conversation in court." Veronica was momentarily flustered by his assertiveness. "You'll find out everything soon enough," Marcus snapped, opening the car door for Kira. On the way to her father's place, Kira was silent. She watched the streets float by and thought about how her life had just been split into, before and after. And although the future was cloudy and frightening, she felt enormous relief. She had escaped the trap. The first few days at her father's apartment were like rehabilitation after a serious illness. She slept a lot while her father looked after Micah. She ate simple but delicious food that he cooked. She was quiet a lot, trying to process everything that had happened. Donovan bombarded her phone. At first he yelled and threatened to take his son away. Then he started begging her to come back, promising that everything would change, that his mother would leave. Kira didn't believe a single word. She just screened his calls. Veronica called too, from a different number. "You'll regret this, you tramp," she hissed into the phone. "I'll make sure you never see your son again." After that call, Marcus insisted that Kira change her phone number. "Don't listen to their nonsense," he said. "A dog barks, but the caravan moves on. We need to prepare for court." They hired a good family law attorney, a woman with the reputation of a bulldog named Attorney Jordan Clark. After reviewing the video recordings and hearing Kira's story, she confidently stated, "This is a winnable case. We'll get the divorce quickly. There won't be any trouble determining the child's residence. He's an infant. The court almost always grants custody to the mother." "The apartment will be trickier," she warned. It turned out that even though the apartment was in Donovan's name, Kira had the right to half of the equity paid into the mortgage during their marriage. "They'll argue that his mother made the down payment," Jordan cautioned, "but we have an ace up our sleeve." "What is it?" Kira wondered. "Emotional distress and battery. That slap is domestic violence. We can file a separate civil lawsuit that will weaken their position and make them more willing to settle the property division." Kira hesitated. She didn't want to air all the dirty laundry, but her father insisted. "He laid a hand on you. That is a crime. He has to face the consequences." And Kira agreed. She realized this wasn't about revenge. It was about protecting herself and showing that she was no longer a victim. She would never allow anyone to treat her like that again. The litigation began. Just as Jordan Clark predicted, Donovan's side was aggressive. His attorney, a slick man in an expensive suit, tried to portray Kira as an unbalanced, vengeful woman who had provoked the conflict herself and was now trying to fleece his client. Veronica, called as a witness, put on a theatrical performance in the hearings. She cried, clutched her heart, and told the court how her daughter-in-law had humiliated and insulted her. "She called me an old hag," she sobbed, wiping her eyes with a handkerchief. "She forbade me from seeing my grandson." Kira sat next to her attorney, listening to the lies with strange composure. After what she had seen in the videos, nothing could surprise her anymore. Donovan behaved differently in court. He didn't yell or accuse. He sat looking like a beaten dog, casting pleading glances at Kira. He tried to elicit pity, guilt, but Kira was resolute. She looked right through him, remembering his shout and the hand raised to strike her. Parallel to the divorce and property division, the battery case was proceeding. Kira had undergone a medical examination immediately after leaving her husband. The bruise on her cheek had been documented. Donovan faced a fine and administrative arrest. This made him noticeably nervous. The pressure from the Hayeses increased. They started an information war. Veronica called all their mutual acquaintances, telling her version of events. She described Kira as an ungrateful shrew who had married for money and was now trying to leave her son with nothing. Some people believed her. A few of Kira's friends from Donovan's company cut ties with her. She was hurt, but not broken. She knew her real friends stayed with her. She also started feeling pressure from the client on that one freelance project she was trying to finish. He urgently demanded revisions, threatening penalties. Kira was torn between court dates, caring for Micah, and work. Sometimes she felt her strength was running out. One of those evenings, after putting her son down, she was sitting in her father's kitchen, staring into space. "Tired?" Marcus asked quietly, sitting across from her. "Very," she admitted. "Sometimes I just want to give up and agree to their terms." "Never," her father said firmly. "Do you hear me? Never give up. That's exactly what they want. They want to wear you down, to make you throw in the towel. But you are stronger than them, Kira. You will get through this." His certainty was contagious. She drank a hot cup of tea and returned to work. She would prove to all of them that she wasn't broken. A week after the latest court hearing, Donovan cornered her outside her father's building. "Kira, we need to talk," he said, blocking her path. "We have nothing to talk about." She tried to walk around him. "Listen." He grabbed her arm. "Withdraw the battery complaint, please. I'll have problems at work if I have a conviction." "You should have thought of that sooner," Kira answered coldly, pulling her arm away. "I'll make it up to you," he said quickly. "I'll give you the whole apartment. Just withdraw the complaint." Kira stopped. This was unexpected. "What do you mean, give me the apartment?" "I mean, we'll sign a settlement agreement. The apartment stays with you and you drop all claims, including the civil suit for battery." The offer was tempting. Her own apartment, the end of the lawsuits, the start of a new life. "I'll think about it," she said. That evening, she discussed it with her father and her attorney. Jordan Clark was skeptical. "It's too generous. There's a catch. He's not afraid of a fine. He's afraid of something bigger. Maybe a conviction could affect his career advancement or getting a loan." "And if we agree, will he go back on his word?" Kira asked. "We'll formalize everything legally, a settlement agreement approved by the court. He won't be able to back out of it." Her father was also in favor. "The apartment is a good guarantee for your and Micah's future. Let him live with his fears. Punishment isn't always jail. Sometimes it's the loss of everything you held dear." Kira agreed. She wanted to end this agonizing saga as quickly as possible. Jordan contacted Donovan's attorney, and they began preparing the settlement documents. Kira almost believed that everything would soon be over, but she had underestimated her mother-in-law's cunning. The day before the signing, Veronica called her. "Well, did you get what you wanted?" Her voice dripped with venom. "Taking the last thing away from my son." "It's not me taking it. It's him giving it," Kira corrected her, "in exchange for my silence about him raising his hand to me." "You think we'll let you get the apartment that easily?" The mother-in-law laughed. "Naive." And she hung up. The call alarmed Kira. She told Jordan about it. "Don't worry about it." The attorney dismissed it. "It's the death throes. She's losing and she's angry. Tomorrow we'll sign everything, and this nightmare will be over." But the nightmare was only just beginning. The climax of this drama was still ahead, and it was to take place where it all started, in their former apartment. Kira had no idea what kind of trap Veronica had set for her. The signing of the settlement agreement was scheduled for Friday at 3:00 p.m., right in the apartment on Willow Creek. Donovan's side insisted on this, to hand over the keys and sign all the paperwork on the spot, his attorney explained. Jordan found it strange, but agreed, warning Kira to be on guard. Kira arrived with her father. Marcus, though retired, had not lost his investigative instincts and insisted on being present for the transaction. "Just in case," he said. Donovan opened the door. He looked nervous, constantly glancing around and fidgeting with his shirt cuffs. The apartment was unusually quiet and felt empty. Some furniture was missing. "Come in," he mumbled. letting them into the living room. His attorney and Veronica were already in the room. The mother-in-law sat bolt upright in an armchair, watching Kira with unconcealed hatred. "Where is Jordan Clark?" Marcus asked, looking around. "She's running late," Donovan's attorney replied. "Stuck in traffic. But we can start without her. It's a simple formality." Kira's father frowned. "No, we'll wait." A tense silence fell. Veronica deliberately pulled a cigarette and a lighter from her purse. "Do you mind?" she asked in an icy tone, looking straight at Kira. "Nerves are shot." "I do mind," Kira answered calmly. "You know perfectly well I can't stand smoke." "Oh, forgive me," the mother-in-law feigned remorse. "I completely forgot about your delicate constitution." She didn't put the cigarette away, continuing to twist it in her fingers. At that moment, Marcus's phone rang. "Excuse me," he said, stepping into the hallway. "Just a minute." As soon as the door closed behind him, the atmosphere in the room instantly changed. "Well, you witch, are you happy?" Veronica hissed, rising from the armchair. "You ruined the family. You left my son homeless." "That was his choice," Kira countered. "His choice?" Donovan interjected. His voice was shaking with anger. "You set this whole thing up. You wanted a divorce from the start. You wanted to steal the apartment. I know it." "Calm down, son," Veronica put a hand on his shoulder. "Don't waste your nerves on her. She won't get what she wants anyway." She looked back at Kira, and a malicious spark flashed in her eyes. "Did you think you were so clever? Did you think we'd just hand over the apartment?" She took a step toward Kira, who involuntarily backed away. "What are you planning?" she asked, feeling a wave of icy fear rise in her throat. Instead of answering, Veronica walked to the china cabinet where their wedding photos used to sit and pulled out a small jewelry box. "Do you know what this is?" she asked, opening it. Inside, on a velvet cushion, lay several gold pieces. Rings, earrings, a necklace. "Those are my jewels," Kira said, surprised. "I thought they were lost in the move." "They weren't lost," the mother-in-law smirked. "They were waiting for their moment." With those words, she walked to the window, flung it open, and shouted, "Help! I'm being robbed!" and threw the jewelry box into the street. Kira froze in bewilderment, not understanding what was happening. Below, the sound of breaking glass could be heard. There was a neighbor's small greenhouse beneath the window. "What are you doing?" was all Kira could whisper. "Mom, what is this?" Donovan shouted, rushing to the window, but it was too late. The apartment door burst open, and 2 police officers appeared on the threshold. Marcus stood behind them, his face impassive. "Did someone call the police here?" one of them asked sternly. "Yes, I called!" Veronica immediately cried out, pointing a finger at Kira. "There she is. This woman broke into our apartment, threatened me, and stole my jewelry, then threw it out the window to hide the evidence." The police officers looked at Kira. She stood in the middle of the room, pale as a sheet, unable to utter a single word. It was an absurd, nightmarish spectacle. "Ma'am, come with us," the second officer said, walking toward her. "Wait," Marcus intervened. "This is a mistake. This is my daughter, and this is her apartment." "Her apartment?" Veronica burst into hysterical laughter. "She is no one here. Ask my son, Donnie, tell them." All eyes turned to Donovan. He stood by the window, white as a wall, looking back and forth between his mother and Kira. This was the moment of truth, the moment when he had to make a choice. "Donovan," Kira called softly. He looked up at her, and his eyes were empty. I don't know," he mumbled. "Mom was shouting. She came in. She started demanding something." He didn't defend her. He didn't even try to tell the truth. He was just afraid and betrayed her again. "I see," Marcus said. His voice was calm, but steel rang in it. "All right, daughter, don't worry." He turned to the officers. "Officers, I am Marcus Hayes, Lieutenant Colonel, retired, 25 years in the Detective Bureau, and I state that a crime is being committed here, specifically filing a false police report and attempted fraud." Veronica faltered for a moment, but immediately recovered. "Don't listen to him!" she screamed. He's her father. He's covering for her. You'll see about that. Marcus pulled out his phone. You know, I'm an old detective, and I make a habit of recording everything, especially when I meet with people like this. He pressed a button, and the room was filled with Veronica's voice, the same voice Kira had heard just a minute ago. Well, you witch. Are you happy? You ruined the family. Did you think we'd just hand over the apartment? The recording continued, capturing every word, every threat, including her own scream. Help! I'm being robbed! The color drained from her mother-in-law's face. Her confidence, her anger, all vanished. Only fear remained. Donovan collapsed onto the sofa, clutching his head in his hands. The police officers exchanged glances. All right, ma'am, the older officer said, walking up to Veronica. It seems we'll have to take you with us now. But that wasn't the end. The main blow was still to come. Just as the officer took Veronica by the arm, Kira, who had been silent until then, suddenly stepped forward. She looked at her now definitely ex-husband. And now, Donovan, here's the interesting part, she said quietly, but loud enough for everyone to hear. Remember how you screamed at me? Shut your mouth. Who do you think you are to talk to my mother like that? He raised a haunted gaze to her. Well, I am Kira Hayes, the woman you betrayed, the mother of your son, and the owner of this apartment. And you know why? She pulled a folded piece of paper from her purse and handed it to him. Because your elderly, sick mother, it turns out, signed a quitclaim deed to this apartment to you 15 years ago, and anything given as a gift before a marriage is not divisible in a divorce. So when we were signing that settlement agreement, you were trying to give me something that was legally mine all along. An astonishing silence fell in the room. All they could hear was Veronica's labored breathing. Donovan looked at the document Kira was holding out, and his face became a mask of horror. He slowly took the paper. It was a recent title search report obtained by Jordan Clark just yesterday. It clearly stated that Donovan became the sole owner of the apartment long before their marriage. How? How did you find out? He whispered. Good attorney, Kira shrugged. She decided to check the title before signing the settlement, and what a surprise she found. It turns out both of you were trying to cheat me, you by offering me my own share of the apartment in exchange for silence, and you, Veronica. Veronica made a strange gurgling sound and began to sink to the floor. Mom! Donovan screamed, catching her. The police officers, who had been watching the scene with professional interest, scrambled into action. Sir, call an ambulance. Marcus was already dialing the number. Kira stood in the middle of the chaos, feeling a strange, icy emptiness. There was no triumph, only bitterness. She looked at her mother-in-law's limp body, at Donovan's bewildered face, at the bustling officers, and understood that she had just definitively destroyed her family. Yes, she was right. Yes, she had protected herself. But at what cost? While they waited for the ambulance, Marcus calmly and methodically explained the situation to the police. He handed them the audio recording and the copy of the title search. We'll file a formal complaint for filing a false report and attempted fraud at the precinct, he said. Veronica, who had come to, but continued to groan and complain about her heart, was loaded onto a stretcher by the paramedics. Heart attack. It was all her, the mother-in-law whispered, pointing a trembling finger at Kira. Donovan rode with her. Before leaving, he shot Kira a look full of such hatred that it scared her. It was the look of a man who had lost everything. When they left and the apartment fell silent again, Kira sank into an armchair and covered her face with her hands. All the tension of the last weeks, all the fear, all the pain burst out. She sobbed, shaking uncontrollably. Her father sat beside her, wrapping his arm around her shoulders. Quiet now, baby girl. It's over. You did good. You were strong. I'm not strong, Dad, she whimpered. I feel empty. I destroyed everything. You didn't destroy anything, he said firmly. You just held up a mirror to them, and they didn't like what they saw in it. They destroyed everything themselves with their lies and malice. They sat in silence for a long time. Kira gradually calmed down. Her father brewed some strong tea. "What about the apartment?" she asked, sipping the hot drink. "Since it was his, I have no right to it, do I?" "Not exactly," Marcus replied. "Since you were married and significant improvements were made during the marriage, the renovations, for example, that increased its value, you can claim compensation for half of those investments. And of course, child support for Micah and spousal support for yourself until he's 3, so you won't leave empty-handed." "But what's the main thing?" "The main thing is that you're free," he said. "Free from that man and his mother. You can start a new life." A new life. The word sounded frightening. She was used to being a wife, part of a couple. Now who was she? A single mother, without her own place, with a broken heart. That evening, when they returned to her father's apartment, Kira stood by Micah's crib for a long time. She knew she had to build a new, happy life for them, a life without lies, humiliation, or tobacco smoke. She spent the night sleeplessly, reviewing the events of the past few months in her mind, analyzing, trying to understand when everything went wrong. Was she so blind that she didn't see Donovan's true face, or was he just a good pretender? She recalled their first dates, his charming courtship, his promises of love and loyalty. Where did all that go? Or was it never real? Was it just a game in which she was a convenient match? Modest, home-oriented, without high ambitions, the perfect wife for a mama's boy. Toward dawn, as the sky outside the window began to lighten, a strange peace came over her. The pain receded, leaving behind a cold clarity. She no longer felt like a victim. She felt like a fighter who had endured a tough battle. Yes, she was wounded, but not broken. She looked at her reflection in the dark window pane. She saw a tired but determined woman, a woman who had just been through hell and survived. And this woman was ready for the next chapter of her life, a chapter she would write herself, without anyone's manipulation or prompting. She picked up her phone and dialed Jordan Clark's number. "Attorney Clark, good morning. This is Kira Hayes. We're withdrawing the settlement agreement. We're going to court, and we're going to win." She knew there were many difficulties ahead, but now she wasn't afraid. Beside her was her father. In her heart was love for her son, and in her soul, a newfound strength. The strength of a woman who had known betrayal but hadn't broken, who had only become stronger. The state of emotional shock that Kira had been in after the dramatic events in the apartment slowly began to recede, replaced by a dull, aching pain. It felt like waking up after a major surgery. The anesthesia was gone, and every nerve, every cell in her body began to feel the consequences of what she had endured. She mechanically cared for Micah, fed him, changed his diapers, and took him for walks in the neighborhood park near her father's house. But all her actions were automatic, lacking the joy they once had. Her thoughts, like annoying flies, constantly circled the same things: Donovan, his betrayal, her mother-in-law's lies, the broken marriage. She replayed the scene of the slap, his empty eyes when he should have defended her, Veronica's triumphant smirk. These images provoked sudden fits of sharp hatred, then waves of all-consuming self-pity. Sometimes, looking at the sleeping Micah, she would start to cry, quietly, soundlessly, so as not to wake him or alarm her father. She felt like her life was over, that she would never be able to trust men again, never be happy again. Marcus saw his daughter's state and tried to be close without prying. He took on some of the childcare, giving Kira a chance to be alone for at least an hour to collect herself. He didn't lecture her or offer platitudes like, "Time heals all wounds." He was simply there, silent, reliable, like a rock. One of those evenings, he walked into her room. Kira was sitting on the floor, sorting through old photo albums. The yellowed pictures showed her parents, young and happy. Here they were at a protest, here at a picnic. Here he was holding newborn Kira. "Your mother was a very strong woman," Marcus said quietly, sitting beside her. "I know," Kira whispered, staring at a photo of her mother laughing and pushing her on a swing. "When she got sick, the doctors gave her almost no chance," her father continued. "But she fought until the very last day, not for herself, but for you. She wanted to see yous grow up. Go to school. Fall in love." He paused, struggling to contain the lump in his throat. "She wouldn't want you to be defeated now," he said, taking his daughter's hand. "She would want you to fight, just like she did, for yourself and for Micah." Her father's words, simple and sincere, affected Kira more deeply than any therapy session. She lifted her tear-filled eyes to him. "But I don't know how, Dad. It hurts so much, and I'm so scared." "Fear is normal," he nodded. "But you can't let it control your life. You have to turn your pain into fury, a cold, calculated fury that will help you win." He spoke like a detective giving instructions to a subordinate, and that professional firmness in his voice was sobering. "Do you think I can do it?" "I don't think so. I know so," he said confidently. "You are my daughter, and your mother's daughter. You have her backbone. You just don't know it yet." This conversation was a turning point for Kira. She realized she had two paths: either drown in self-pity and allow the hazes to completely crush her, or gather her strength and fight back. She chose the latter. That night, for the first time in a long time, she slept peacefully without nightmares and woke up with a clear sense of purpose. She would no longer cry, she would act. Her first call was to attorney Jordan Clark. "Jordan, we're continuing the fight," she said in a firm voice. "I want to get everything I'm legally entitled to: compensation for the renovations in the apartment, child support, and support for myself until Micah is 3. And I want Veronica to answer for filing a false police report." The lawyer on the other end of the line gave an approving chuckle. "Now that's the fighting spirit I like." "Excellent, Kira." "Regarding the false report, we've already filed the complaint. The police are investigating. That audio recording is 100% proof. She faces a serious fine, maybe even probation. That will certainly cool her ardor. Regarding the property, we will demand a construction appraisal to assess the value of the renovations you did during the marriage. It will take time, but we will prove that the apartment's value significantly increased thanks to your joint investments." Over the next few weeks, Kira dedicated herself to gathering evidence. She dug up old receipts for building materials, found contracts with workers in her email, and compiled lists of furniture and appliances bought during the marriage. This meticulous work distracted her from gloomy thoughts and gave her a sense of control over the situation. She also resumed work on her freelance project. The client, surprisingly, met her halfway when she honestly explained the situation and asked for an extension. Finishing the project gave her not only a fee, but also confidence in her own abilities. She could work, she could earn money, she could provide for herself and her son. She wasn't the helpless victim that Donovan and his mother wanted to see. One day, while walking Micah in the park, she ran into her old college friend, Nia, whom she hadn't seen in almost a year. "Kira, hey!" Nia rushed to hug her. "Long time no see. And who is this little one?" They sat down on a bench, and Kira, without even expecting it, told her everything. Nia listened without interrupting, her cheerful face growing more serious. "That jerk," she said without malice when Kira finished. "And his mother is a witch. Listen, have you ever thought about—" Nia suddenly fell silent, squinting mischievously. "About what?" "I have an idea how we can teach them a lesson. Not legally, but in a way that's personal so they won't forget it." Nia's idea was bold and a little mischievous, but Kira liked it. There was something about it that answered her new mindset, her desire not just to defend herself, but to strike back, a blow that would make them feel at least a fraction of the pain and humiliation she had endured. They spent another hour in the park discussing the details, and as Kira walked home, a smile played on her lips for the first time in a long time. It wasn't the forced smile she had shown for the past few months. It was the smile of a woman who had a plan for small but very righteous revenge. The plan Nia proposed was simple and brilliant in its simplicity. Betrayal, domestic violence, a cunning mother-in-law. People love stories like that. "You're suggesting I write an article?" Kira asked with doubt. "But that's airing our dirty laundry." "And they weren't shy about airing it, were they?" Nia countered. The idea was to write an anonymous story based on the events of Kira's life, changing the names and some details, but keeping the core of the drama: a tyrant husband, a manipulative mother-in-law, the story of the slap, the setup, the theft, and the house deed. "You see," Nia passionately argued, "Donovan works for a major tech company. He's a public figure, a manager. Reputation is everything to him. Now imagine his colleagues, his boss, reading this story. They won't know for sure it's about him, but the details will make them wonder, especially if we add a few subtle hints." The hints were subtle, but recognizable to those in the know, Nia assured her. "Kira, this isn't revenge, it's self-defense. You have to show him you're not afraid anymore." Kira thought long and hard. On one hand, it felt like gossip, settling scores. On the other, she remembered her father's words: "Turn your pain into fury." This article could be her way of venting everything she had bottled up, while simultaneously striking at Donovan's most vulnerable spot, his ego and his career. She agreed. They spent several evenings working on the text. Kira recounted, and Nia wrote, shaping her fragmented, emotional memories into a smooth, compelling narrative. Working on the article had an unexpected therapeutic effect. By recounting her story again and again, Kira felt as if she were watching it from the outside. She saw not only her pain, but also her mistakes, her excessive trust, her unwillingness to notice the red flags, her passivity. "I was so foolish," she said one day, finishing the account of yet another humiliation. "No, you weren't," Nia reassured her. "You were in a bad situation. Now you're taking back your power." The article was published anonymously on a popular local online forum under the title, "The Price of Silence: How I Escaped My Husband and His Vicious Mother." It went viral almost instantly. The comment section exploded. Women shared their own stories, expressed support for the anonymous author, and gave advice. "Run, girl. He's not worth it. The mother is simply a monster." Kira read the comments, and it made her feel lighter. She wasn't alone. Thousands of women had gone through something similar, and her story could help someone, warn them, or give them strength. That same evening, Donovan called her. His voice was distorted with rage. "What have you done, you tramp?" he yelled into the phone without any preamble. "What are you talking about?" Kira asked calmly, though her heart was pounding. "Don't pretend. That article! Everyone at work is whispering behind my back. My boss looked at me funny today." "What article?" Kira continued to feign ignorance. "I don't read local forums. I have other things to worry about." You did this deliberately," he choked on his anger. "You decided to destroy my career." "Donovan, if anyone is destroying your career, it's you yourself with your actions," Kira retorted. "And if you recognized yourself in an anonymous story, maybe you should think about why." And she hung up. An hour later, Nia called. "Well, any reaction yet?" "Oh, yeah," Kira chuckled. "He called, yelled, and accused me." "Perfect," Nia said, pleased. "We hit the target. Stay strong, girl. He'll be even angrier now." Nia was right. At the next court hearing, Donovan and his attorney were even more aggressive. They tried to contest every document, every receipt, but Jordan Clark was ready. She calmly deflected all their attacks and then delivered a counterblow. "Your Honor," she addressed the judge, "we request to introduce one more piece of evidence which characterizes the defendant's personality." She handed the judge a flash drive. "This contains video recordings made in the plaintiff and defendant's apartment. They clearly demonstrate the psychological atmosphere my client was living in." Donovan's attorney jumped up. "Objection! This is illegal recording, an invasion of privacy." "The recording was made in my client's own apartment," Jordan countered, "for the purpose of protecting the health of her minor child. And as for privacy, there is a lot of interesting content on these recordings. For example, how Veronica Hayes smokes in close proximity to an infant, how she talks about her daughter-in-law, and how she damages my client's property." The judge frowned and took the flash drive. "The court will review these materials. The session is adjourned." When they left the courtroom, Donovan rushed up to Kira. "You have recordings?" he hissed. "You were recording us?" I have evidence of everything you both did, Kira answered calmly. You'll regret this, he muttered, and quickly left, catching up with his mother, who looked terrified. A few days later, Donovan called again. His tone was completely different, tired and defeated. Kira, let's just end this. What does that mean? I agree to your terms. Compensation, child support, everything you want. Just take those recordings out of play. Don't let them be used. If my boss sees them... And why should I believe you? Kira asked. Because I'm tired, he answered honestly. I'm tired of this war. Mom nags me every day. There are problems at work. Now these recordings, too. Kira was silent. She felt no malice, only fatigue and a slight distaste. I'll talk to my attorney, she finally said. Jordan Clark was against it. We shouldn't back down. We need to squeeze them. I don't want to prove anything anymore, Kira replied. I just want to live. If he's ready to sign an agreement on our terms, let's do it. I want to turn this page as soon as possible. They drafted a settlement agreement. It included all the points, the amount of compensation for her share of the apartment, the exact amount Jordan had originally calculated, the amount of child support for Micah and spousal support for Kira, and a schedule for Donovan's visitation with his son, and, as a separate clause, Donovan's obligation not to obstruct the sale of the apartment and to pay the compensation within 1 month after the sale. Donovan signed everything without looking. It seemed he was ready to do anything to keep those video recordings from seeing the light of day. The signing of the final agreement and its approval in court went surprisingly smoothly. Donovan was silent and sullen. Veronica did not appear at the hearing, citing poor health. When the judge announced that the marriage was dissolved and the agreement approved, Kira felt an enormous weight lift from her shoulders. It was over. She left the courthouse on shaky legs. A light autumn rain was falling outside. Congratulations, Jordan said, shaking her hand. That was not an easy victory. Thank you truly, Kira said sincerely. I couldn't have done it without you. She was about to head to the bus stop when Donovan caught up with her. Kira, wait! She turned around. He stood in the rain without an umbrella, and his expensive coat was already soaked at the shoulders. I wanted to give you this. He held out the keys to the apartment on Willow Creek. Why? She didn't understand. I won't live there anyway. The apartment is going to be sold. I know, he nodded. But until it's sold, you can live there. Your father's place is probably cramped, and take your things. A lot of your stuff is still there. He spoke quietly, not looking her in the eye. Where will you live? I'm moving back in with my mother. He gave a crooked smile. She'll be happy. Kira took the keys. She felt strangely sorry for him in that moment. The once confident, successful man now looked lost and pathetic. Goodbye, Donovan, she said. Goodbye, he replied, and walked away, hunched against the rain. The next day, Kira and her father arrived at her former apartment. In the few months she hadn't been there, the place had turned into something resembling a bachelor's den. Dirty dishes were piled up in the sink, clothes lay scattered on the floor, and a sour smell of stale food hung in the air. Well, Marcus drawled, looking around. The music didn't play for long. Without a woman's touch, everything here quickly fell apart. They began sorting through the items. Kira methodically packed her clothes, books, and dishes into boxes. Each item brought a wave of memories. This cup, which they used to drink tea from in the evenings, this blanket, under which they watched movies, and this frame with their wedding photo pushed into the back corner of a shelf. She took out the photo. Happy, smiling faces. It seemed like another life. She removed the picture from the frame and tore it into tiny pieces. The past needed to be let go. In Donovan's closet, on a shelf, she stumbled upon a familiar flat box. Veronica's silver cigarette case. It was empty. Apparently her mother-in-law had forgotten it in her haste. Kira turned it over in her hands and tossed it into the box of trash. She no longer needed clues or reminders. That evening, when almost everything was packed, there was a knock at the door. Kira opened it. Veronica stood on the threshold. She looked terrible, pale, thinner, with dark circles under her eyes. "Can I come in?" she asked quietly. "Why?" Kira asked guardedly. I wanted to talk." Kira hesitated but let her in. Marcus, who had come out of the room at the sound, silently stood in the doorway, ready to intervene at any moment. "I came to apologize," Veronica said, not looking at Kira. "I was wrong about everything." It was so unexpected that Kira was taken aback. I don't know what to say." "You don't have to say anything." The mother-in-law raised her eyes, and Kira saw tears in them. "Just listen. I was always afraid of being alone. My husband died when Donnie was only 10. I poured everything into him my whole life. And when he married you, I got scared that he would forget me, that I would become unnecessary to him. And I started doing foolish things. I was jealous, I nitpicked, I tried to prove that I was more important. You almost—" She stopped at the door and turned back. "And the cigarette case? It was my father's, the only memory of my dad. If you find it, please return it." Kira silently took the silver box from the trash box and handed it to her. A month later, the apartment was sold. Kira received her share, almost $150,000. It was enough to buy a small but cozy one-bedroom condo in a new development near a park. She renovated it and furnished it to her taste. It was bright. Donovan paid child support diligently and saw Micah on weekends. Their communication was cool but polite. He never moved out of his mother's apartment. Acquaintances reported that he often drank and changed jobs. His career at the tech company had gone downhill after the scandalous article. He became irritable and withdrawn. Kira felt no hatred toward him, only sadness that everything could have been different if he had only found the strength to grow up and separate from his mother. But he made his choice, and she made hers. 2 years passed. The spring sun flooded the spacious kitchen and living room of Kira's new condo with light. Her life had changed beyond recognition in those 2 years. She had gone from a crushed, insecure woman to a successful, independent mother who stood firmly on her own 2 feet. After the divorce, she didn't return to the office. She continued to freelance, and her talent as a graphic designer was finally appreciated. Word of mouth worked better than any advertisement. She gained major clients, a stable income, and, most importantly, the opportunity to work from home and spend maximum time with her son. She read a lot, started yoga, and began learning Italian. She was discovering a new world where she was the main character, not a supporting role in someone else's drama. The relationship with Donovan and his mother had dwindled. He still saw Micah, but their meetings became rarer. He often canceled at the last minute, citing being busy or feeling unwell. Kira didn't insist. She saw that the visits didn't bring her son joy. Donovan was distant with him. He didn't know what to talk about or what to do. Veronica no longer tried to contact her. Kira heard from mutual acquaintances that she had declined significantly, was sick, and rarely left the house. Her plan to control her son's life had failed, and it had broken her. Kira felt no malicious joy, only quiet sorrow that one destructive passion, the thirst for power over another person, could poison the lives of both herself and those around her. A new person had entered her life. His name was Julian. He was an architect, a divorced father of a charming 5-year-old daughter named Chloe. They met by chance in the park when their children were fighting over a swing. They started talking, then met again and again. Julian was Donovan's complete opposite, calm, reliable, and attentive. He didn't speak beautiful words, but his actions spoke for themselves. He would drive across town late at night to fix her leaky faucet. He listened to her work stories with genuine interest. He adored Micah and treated him like his own son. Marcus, who was initially wary of all men, gave his approval after meeting Julian. Good man, genuine, you can count on him. Today, they were expecting Julian and his daughter Chloe as guests. Kira had baked her signature pie, the same one she had once tried to make for Donovan, but he had always found flaws in it. Julian, however, was crazy about it. The doorbell rang. Micah rushed into the hallway with a joyful shout of, "Uncle Julian!" Kira followed him. Julian stood on the threshold with a huge bouquet of daisies, her favorite flowers, and a large box. Chloe shyly hid behind his back. "Hello, beautiful women," Julian smiled, handing Kira the flowers. "These are for you." He came in, scooped Micah into his arms, and spun him around the room. The boy laughed uncontrollably. Kira watched them, and her heart filled with quiet, warm happiness, the very happiness she had only dreamed of. A happiness built not on passion and beautiful promises, but on respect, care, and trust. They sat at the table, drinking tea and eating pie. The children played in the next room. Julian talked about his new project. Kira, about a funny incident with a client. Everything was so simple, so natural, so right. "You know," Julian said, taking her hand, "I thank fate every day for that swing in the park." "Me too," Kira smiled. Just then, her phone pinged with a short notification. A message had arrived. She quickly glanced at the screen. An unfamiliar number. "Hey, it's Donovan. I know I have no right, but I wanted to wish Micah a happy birthday. He's 2.5 today. I remember. Tell him his dad loves him. And also, I'm sorry for everything. Be happy." Kira silently deleted the message. She felt neither anger nor offense, only slight surprise that he even remembered the date. The past had finally let her go. She turned to Julian, who was looking at her with slight concern. "Everything okay?" "Yes," she nodded. "Everything is just wonderful." She leaned her head against his shoulder, listening to the children's laughter from the next room, and thought about how winding and unpredictable the road to happiness can be. Sometimes you have to go through betrayal to learn to value loyalty. Sometimes you have to know pain to find true joy. Sometimes the darkest night comes right before the dawn. Her dawn had arrived, and she knew that a long, bright, and happy day lay ahead of her. Dear friends, thank you for being with me and listening to my story to the end. I hope it helps some of you who find yourselves in a similar situation to find the strength within yourselves and never give up. Remember that you deserve respect and happiness. Never let anyone convince you otherwise. If you liked my story, please subscribe to the channel, give it a thumbs up, and share your thoughts in the comments. Your support means a lot to me.